Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. This is Jenny Oya with Nuggets and Things. We want to talk about activation today. To be put into use. Your purpose is finally put to use once you've been activated. Your phone is no good, honey, until you activate it. Neither is, cards that you get in the mail, until you activate it, it's just a card. You're just you until you've been activated, right? I remember probably, oh gosh, maybe 95. I was out there on the softball field, somewhere between second and third base. And I was out there, and I remember I was standing on the base, and for some reason, I thought about an eagle, and then I thought about me. And the question I asked out there on the field, I asked this question, right? Where's home? I was looking for home. I was looking for a place that I could say, I'm finally home. I'm home now. And I'm not talking about of course, y'all know, not a natural place. I ain't talking about an address. I'm talking about where my spirit knows it's finally arrived to where it's supposed to be. You know, I was looking for home. Been a lot of places, honey. Seen a lot of things. Met a lot of people. But I still couldn't find home. A place that I knew this is where I'm supposed to be. And I remember one day, I was in church and I was singing this song, and I did a remix on this song, and I kept saying, just want to go home. Take me home. I just miss home. And everybody kind of flowed with it, because I'm a remixer. But I don't know if anybody ever really grasped what I was saying. The home I was looking for was not heaven. It was a spiritual place that I knew I belonged. Many times in life we're on this search trying to figure out where we belong, right? And one day we'll do that on this identity crisis, right? That we will plunge into. That's why we're going through all these ancestry things, trying to find out who we are, where we come from, who are we related to, what our origins are. I'm sorry, all these things we're looking for because we've been displaced, casualties of war, all that kind of stuff, right? But looking for home wasn't the natural place, or trying to find out, my makeup, what I, who, that wasn't it. It was a spiritual search I was on. And then when I found it, honey, when I realized what I was looking for was within me, it wasn't outside. It was inside. I was looking for me because in life, you're trying to be sometimes what everybody else wants you to be, you know? So by you trying to be this, that, and the other, you miss you. And then when you find you, ah, and then you get activated, put to your purpose. Now know this is what I've been looking for, me. And then when you find you, can't nobody, honey, undo what you know. It's like you see something right, and somebody say, I like you didn't see it. How you act like you didn't see what you just saw? I just saw it, honey. I can't act like I didn't see it. You can't unsee something. You might want to try to forget it, but you can't unsee it. Ain't it nice? Some things just, you just learn. So what I did when I realized about activation, and let me do a little briefing on that, right? I told you about, the story of being on the base looking for home. But then I realized something else about the superheroes, Marvel, so forth, right? The superheroes, um, when they are not activated, they're just basic. They blend with everybody. Because they're not in the activation mode. You know, they're just, you know, Sandra Sandra Johnson and Tom, Donahue, right? That's who they are. But little do people know that Sandra has got some superpowers. She's got some super abilities, and she can do things that most people don't even imagine because she's able to move in a different, arena when she's not Sandra Johnson, when she's been activated. Same thing as Thomas, right? Thomas during the day, he's, got his little three-piece suit on. He's a lawyer and he's good at it too. But now when he's activated, he does much more, right? He's able to do things that most people only dream of, or some people don't even believe even exist. I like that because you should be able to do things that other people has to say, wow. And they're saying wow because they don't realize they can do the same thing. There's nothing impossible until you make it so. I remember, and some of y'all have been on my journey with me, right? When, the doctors had, kind of doomed me, you know, you get ready to have a heart attack, girl, and you're going to have a stroke. They planted a seed in me. And because, unfortunately, my ground was good, when they planted the seed, it began to grow. So now I began to operate on the seed they planted, right? So now I began to believe that I was going to have a heart attack or stroke. Anyway, they told me my heart was bad. You got a bad heart, honey. You got a bad heart. And I remember this. I was laying on my bed, unbeknownst to most. I was laying on my bed, had given up because I knew that any minute now I would have a heart attack or a stroke because that's a seed that was planted. I received that seed and I began to nourish the seed that was planted. Instead of plucking it up, the moment it was planted, I should have plucked it out. But I didn't. I rested in it. And I became depressed. And I began to feel like, okay, I'm getting ready to leave here. So, what more can I do? And one day I was laying on my bed in a given up state. Just a given up state. I was basically existing but not living. Y'all know that stage, don't you? Y'all been there before. And right there, my goddess, she came by. She walked into my bedroom. She climbed into bed with me and handed me an amethyst. And she said, place this by your heart. And she just smiled. No abracadabra, no zugum drink this tea, spin around 5 times, by the power invest. No. Take the amethyst and put it by your heart. And she just smiled and laid there. And she looked up at me, smiling. Well, this girl done got up in the bed, And she gave me something to reactivate me. Because I had lost myself in the forecast that the doctors were telling me. So I began to believe what they said. And if you believe it so, it will be so, based on your belief, honey. Good or bad. So guess what? I laid that amethyst on my heart. And I just held it there. But as it laid on my heart, it began to remind me who I am, what I can do, how I exist, the powers that are invested in me. And honey, that morning when I got out of that bed, I jumped out of there, honey, and made my day. I said, let me take back. See, because some people can write your script. They can write you a script. They can write your story without your permission, honey. They're writing your story and they're telling you how your life is going to be, where it's going to go, who you'll be with. They done already wrote your story for you. They got a pen and paper on you. And you never even, gave them permission for that. And they running with it, honey. And you begin to act out the story that somebody wrote for you. Well, I snatched that pen back, honey, from whoever the author was. Whoever the author was that wrote that little piece of story about my life was going to end based on, their words. And sugar, let me tell you what happened. Your girl, honey. Not only did she take back her life, and she realized that, that this is not, honey, this is not the end of this, baby. But honey, she began to look, grab a hold of her activation skills, her abilities, her powers, and realize, hey, You ain't here for this, honey. This is not your end. And you will never end because you are infinity. You are forever. Some of y'all catch it, some of you won't. But you are. You're timeless, baby. Timeless. I begin to see things a little bit different earlier. And when I started to see things different, honey, I started changing the way I did things. I said, you know what? Effective, honey, now. That's what I said a few months back. Effective now. I would not celebrate another birthday of mine. Because every time I celebrate a birthday, I put another age on me, another year on me. So then when I'm saying I'm getting older because I say I'm celebrating another year, then I'm going to get older because I'm celebrating another year. But I don't have to celebrate another year. I just be. Ah, just be, huh? You're timeless. You know, as you think, so you shall be. You know, if you're saying we're getting older, you will. You know, oh, my arthritis is bothering me. Your arthritis is bothering you. Well, you don't claim it as yours, so I guess it's gonna bother you. You know, they said years ago, age is nothing but a number. But look, people used to say that, because they were trying to, trying to get with somebody that was younger or older, so they would use that phrase, age is nothing but a number. Nice little phrase, but in essence, it's so true. It is just a number. You know, it's what it is, and age is definitely a state of mind. You know, there's some people that are 19 years old. They be carrying themselves like they're 40. You know, in a mindset, honey. And there's people 70 years old just doing things like they're 30. Mindset. And if you think that you're older than you are, if you think you're younger than you are, because it's in your mind, it's your mindset. Set your mind, your premise of where you want to be, what you want to do, and don't let somebody else come in there and change that for you. You know, that's what they believe and feel. That's on them. You don't change because of them. You let them change because of you. Activate, baby. You've been activated. And when you're activated, honey, you're not the same. You're going to do things differently. You're going to show up differently. You will be mindful of the fact you are different. I am not your basic, Jane or John. I am different and I will move different. I will show myself differently. That's who I am. I've been activated. You're your own superhero when you realize it. Stop allowing people to make you think that you're limited to what you can do, how you can do it. Because it's untrue. You're not limited. There is no limitations until you put them on yourself. It's time for you to be activated. Activate, honey. And when you become activated, yeah, only time you can deactivate, like, sometimes on social media, you can deactivate your account. You deactivate it when you say, I no longer want, these benefits. I no longer want to be involved. You can deactivate you. I no longer want to have those powers, these abilities. That's your call too. But those of you that understand that being activated means you need to be, about your business, honey. You need to be moving things, changing things, being things. You could be here, there, and everywhere at the same time and never skip a beat. But if you don't believe it, you'll never have it. Never have it. Trust in the fact that if you've been activated and if you are activated, honey, it's for a purpose. It's for a plan. And you got it. Don't stop, honey. Don't stop and don't lose hope. It's going to get better and you're going to do great things. Great things. Because you know that you're here this time for something great. If you've not been activated, then it's time to get activated. And if you are activated, you need to be about your business. I know you are. I know you are. Yeah. You're doing it. Don't stop, honey. Don't let people make you think, honey, you got to stay in the Jane, plain Jane, syndrome. Just blend in, blend in, blend in, blend in. Nah, you ain't got to blend in, honey. Just be. And when you just be and not try to blend, you'll find out who you are. And then when you find out who you are, Don't go back, honey. Don't go back. This is Jenny O, y'all, with Nuggets and Things. I hope you've been fabulous. You know, I've been to Cancun, honey. Coco Bongo. Hola. That's all I can say while I was there. But anyway, you know, I was glad to go and so glad to be back home, honey. We'll talk about it another day. But you be fabulous. Much love to you, honey. Have an awesome day. Let your light, so shine. Let it shine, honey. Don't stop being who you are. You know, don't get confused, honey, by nothing that you see, because you're bigger than that. See us.